In this video, we're going to go over the 28-point peace plan that the Trump administration and the Russians have put together and have presented to Zelensky. I'm going to do something different in that I'm going to do two different things. One, we're going to tally. I'm going to have this yellow pad, and we're going to tally what is pro-Ukraine. So let me write that down, pro-Ukraine. And then we're going to tally what is pro-Russia. Now, I've been talking about this from the articles that I've been reading about it, so I haven't actually read the 28 points. Here's the full plan in Axios. It's been published, and again, it's a draft. It's kind of a working outline of the plan. There's nothing set in stone at this point. So here's the full plan, and we're going to just go over everything that is said here. And this is the first time I'm reading this with you, so you can get my reaction. I've been paying close attention, as you know, but okay. First, Ukraine's sovereignty will be confirmed. Okay, that's point number one. So that's pro-Ukraine. What that actually means in effect is going to be open to interpretation, I'm sure, by the Russians. So let's look at point number two. Comprehensive non-aggression agreement will be concluded between Russia, Ukraine, and Europe. All ambiguities of the last 30 years will be considered settled. Well, but there shouldn't have been ambiguities in the last 30 years. They shouldn't have been crossing over the border. So a comprehensive non-aggression agreement will be concluded, and it was concluded with Budapest. So I'm going to give this to pro-Russia, because just because it's in legislation doesn't mean it's actually settled until it's actually settled. That might not be fair. Let me make another category. Let's call it both. Okay, but I'm still giving this one to Russia. Number three, it's expected that Russia will not invade neighboring countries and NATO will not expand further. Well, okay. So if you make an agreement, but you're willing to break the agreement and the other side is going to honor the agreement, that's a point in pro-Russia's favor, because that's what could actually happen here. NATO is not going to break that unnecessarily. They're going to, they're a defensive alliance, and not expand further. That would be a loss for NATO. Why can't NATO? Why does Russia get a vote on Ukrainian peace over what NATO can or can't do? I don't understand that. That's a big win for Russia. Okay, number four, a dialogue will be held between Russia and NATO, mediated by the United States, to resolve all security issues and create conditions for de-escalation in order to ensure global security and increase opportunities for cooperation and future economic development. Okay. What I hear in that is the economic development part right here, and that's going to be a big win for Russia. Dialogue held between Russia and the United States. Okay, so part of the problem is that the United States has shifted from being a backer of Ukraine to trying to be a neutral-ish kind of intermediary, and that's bad for Ukraine. Number five, Ukraine will receive reliable security guarantees. Okay, that sounds good. Let's see what that means. U.S. official told Axios that this would be an explicit security guarantee for Ukraine from the U.S., explicit security guarantee from Ukraine to Ukraine from the U.S. For the first time has officially been on the table during these talks, though the proposal does not offer full details at this time. Okay, I'm going to just put the best face on this and try to understand this and say, okay, that looks like it would be a pro-Ukraine win if it works, and that is if it's backed, if it's but we don't have any more information. So right now the tally is 2 Ukraine to 3 pro-Russia, and we're at number 5. Number 6, the size of the Ukrainian armed forces will be limited to 60,000 or 600,000 personnel. Note, the Ukrainian army currently has 800 to 850,000 personnel, has around 250,000 before the war, according to a Ukrainian official. So this is a reduction. This is a very pro-Russian kind of position. Why isn't the Russian army being limited? That's what I just don't understand. Ukraine agrees to enshrine its constitution, in its constitution, that it will not join NATO, and NATO agrees to include in its statutes a provision that Ukraine will not be admitted in the future. Again, the number 7, that's a big win for Russia. Again, I just don't understand why a non-NATO member state gets to decide for NATO what NATO can and can't do. Number 8, NATO agrees not to station troops in Ukraine. Again, this is going to be a win for Russia here. No, NATO countries, including France and the UK, have been working on separate proposals that would include small numbers of European troops on Ukrainian soil after the war. This plan appears to disregard that possibility. So that would mean that there could be no peacekeepers from a NATO state. That would be a huge, like, okay, so I'm tallying these just by raw numbers, but this one would be a huge provision if it were to stick. Number 9, European fighter jets will be stationed in Poland. Okay, I mean, why can't they be? Okay, so I guess that's part of the NATO plan or something. So again, this isn't helping Ukraine; it's more helping Russia. Number 10, the U.S. guarantee. The U.S. will receive compensation for the guarantee. Huh? Okay, so that's a win for the U.S. theoretically. I mean, as far as the way that the Trump administration is going to interpret it, if Ukraine invades Russia, it will lose the guarantee. If Ukraine invades, okay, I got that. So if Ukraine invades Russia, the U.S. will not receive this compensation. If Russia invades Ukraine, in addition to a decisive, if Ukraine invades Russia, like that wasn't going to happen before the war started. If Russia invades Ukraine, in addition to decisive coordinated military response, all global sanctions will be reinstated. Recognition of the new territory and all other benefits of this deal will be revoked. If Ukraine launches a missile at Moscow or St. Petersburg without cause or security guarantee will be deemed invalid. Okay. It seems like it tilts in the favor of Russia only because Russia's the aggressor. Like, I mean, I'm going to say both for this particular one. Okay. And that might be too kind, but let's say. Okay. Number 11, Ukraine is eligible for EU membership and will receive short-term preferential access to the European market while this issue is being considered. Oh, okay, but they were already eligible for this, so I don't know what that is, but it's a pro-Ukraine provision. I guess they're trying to just stack something in there that's pro-Ukrainian. Number 12, a powerful global package of measures to rebuild Ukraine, including but not limited to the creation of Ukrainian Development Fund to invest in fast-growing industries, including technology, data centers, artificial intelligence. The United States will cooperate with Ukraine to jointly rebuild, develop, modernize, and operate Ukraine's gas infrastructure, including pipelines and storage facilities, joint efforts to rehabilitate war-affected areas for restoration, reconstruction, and modernization of cities, infrastructure, development, extraction of minerals and natural resources. The World Bank will develop a special financing package to accelerate these efforts. Okay. So that looks like a win for Ukraine, and I'm going to put it in Ukraine, but I'm also giving it as a win for pro-Russia because Russia is not on the hook for any of the damage that they caused here. Like that's the headline to that. Okay, number 13, Russia will be integrated into the global economy. Huge win. Okay, lifting of sanctions will be discussed and agreed upon in stages and a case-by-case basis. The United States will enter into long-term economic cooperation agreement for mutual development in the areas of natural resources, infrastructure, artificial intelligence, data centers, rare earths. Okay, I mean, Russia will be invited into rejoin the G8. Whoa. I mean, so again, it's not doing justice because on paper, this is just one, but in actuality, that is like many times the size that one should be. It should be like 10. Yeah. Okay. Number 14, frozen funds will be used as follows. 100 billion of the frozen Russian assets will be invested into U.S.-led efforts to rebuild and invest in Ukraine. Okay. So they are, having to spend some of that, frozen Russian assets in order to rebuild. So Russia is paying, but Russia's not paying. It's the oligarchs that are paying. The U.S. will receive 50% of the profits from this venture. Europe will add 100 billion to increase the amount of investment available for Ukraine's reconstruction. So Europe's still on the hook. Frozen European funds will be unfrozen. Remainder of the frozen funds will be invested in a separate U.S.-Russian investment vehicle that will implement joint projects in specific areas. The fund will be aimed at strengthening relations and increasing common interest to create. Man, that's a huge win for Russia. So Russia is okay. So this thing that you're already going to take, you get to take 100 billion of that, not the total of it. And Europe, you're going to pay another 100 billion, and the rest is going to go into into projects that are going to be pro-Russian kind of investment projects. Big win for Russia. I don't see that as a win for Ukraine in any way. 15, a joint American-Russian working group on security issues will be established to promote and ensure compliance with all provisions of this agreement. That's okay. It's not a win for Ukraine. They didn't say anything about a joint security issues agreement for Ukraine in that. Maybe there's one coming down the pike. We don't know. Number 16, Russia will enshrine in law its policy of non-aggression toward Europe and Ukraine. So while that looks like a win for Ukraine, let's even be generous and say that it is. Okay, so I'm going to mark it there. It's also a win for Russia, because if Russia will do that and then is willing to, and is proven that it's willing to violate that, it's not really going to matter, right? The United States and Russia will agree to extend the validity of treaties on the non-proliferation of control of nuclear weapons, including START 1 treaty. Okay. Again, I should have been keeping a tabulation. I think there were like 3 before. So U.S., let's say 3, including that one, because the U.S. is like getting something out of this as well. I don't like the way that some of these things are written. So the START treaty is a nuclear weapons treaty. The new START will the last major U.S.-Russia arms control treaty is due to expire in February. They're using that as leverage for what's going on in Ukraine. Number 18, Ukraine agrees to be non-nuclear state in accordance with the Treaty of Non-Nuclear Proliferation of Weapons. Well, they're already there. This is just kind of sticking it to them. I'm going to put this in the Russian column because it's certainly not helping Ukraine in any meaningful way. Number 19, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant will be launched under the supervision of the IAEA, with the electricity produced will be distributed equally between Russia and Ukraine. That's still a win for Russia because it's Ukraine's. Like, you stole the thing and you're saying, hey, we'll split what I just stole. How about that? How about, the jewels I just took from your house? You get to keep these necklaces. I get to keep these necklaces. Right. Okay. Number 20, both countries undertake to implement educational programs in schools and society aimed at promoting understanding and tolerance of different cultures and the elimination of racism and prejudice. Ukraine, I'm sorry to laugh at this, but I mean, it's unbelievable. Ukraine will adopt EU rules on religious tolerance and protection of linguistic minorities. Both countries will agree to abolish discriminatory measures and guarantee rights of Ukrainian and Russian media and education. Similar ideas were incorporated into 2020 Trump's Israel-Palestine peace plan. All Nazi ideology and activities must be rejected and prohibited. Okay, so that one's just a dig. There's no, I mean, like, who's doing the Nazi thing anyway? Like, if you could really show us that, you'd be showing us that all day long and twice on Sunday. Okay, but this religious tolerance thing is going to be something that Russia implements and puts on Ukraine that they're not going to really do in their own country's educational system in the same meaningful way. It seems like a way to just say, see, they've revoked, or have violated the treaties, and now we're going to have to do something about it. Territories: Crimea, Luhansk, Donetsk will be recognized as de facto Russian, including by the United States. Wow, that's bad. Okay, de facto Russian Kherson and Zaporizhzhia will be frozen along the lines of contact, which will mean de facto recognition at the line of contact. Why isn't this both along the line of contact? This is a big win for Russia. Yeah, and including recognized by the United States. That's all bad. Ukrainian forces will withdraw from the part of Donetsk Oblast that they currently control. This withdrawal zone will be considered neutral, demilitarized buffer zone, internationally recognized as territory belonging to Russian Federation. Russian forces will not enter this demilitarized zone. Sure. And if you believe that, I have a bridge to sell you. So the Ukrainians will withdraw, and the Russians won't seize the fortress belt and then say, okay, try to drive us out. Come on. You got to be kidding me. 22, after agreeing on the future territorial arrangements, both Russian Federation and Ukraine undertake not to change these arrangements by force, and any security guarantees will not apply in the event of a breach of this commitment. Again, but Russia has violated these kind of agreements again and again. So to trust them to not do this by force when they've proven that, I mean, it seems like you need stronger than this parchment protection. Russia will not prevent Ukraine from using the Dnieper River for commercial activities, and agreements will be reached on the free transport of grain across the Black Sea. Okay, let's theoretically say, let's give that to pro-Ukraine. I mean, let's just be as kind as possible with it. A humanitarian committee will be established to resolve outstanding issues. All remaining prisoners and bodies will be exchanged on an all-for-all basis. Civilian detainees and hostages will be returned, including the children. Okay, so including the children. Civilian detainees. So that would be big for Ukraine if that was the case. Family reunification program will be implemented. Measures will be taken to alleviate suffering of the victims of the conflict. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but okay. So all prisoners exchanged. So this is both Russia and Ukraine simultaneously. Okay, Ukraine will hold elections in 100 days. All parties involved in this conflict will receive full amnesty. Okay, so let's go back to this. Ukraine will hold elections in 100 days. I'm not sure how that is necessarily a benefit to Ukraine. They're going to do that anyway. As soon as martial law is lifted, they have like a 90 days or something like that in order to call for the election. So that's a kind of a pro-Russian point, I think. All parties involved in this conflict will receive full amnesty for their actions during the war and agree not to make any claims or consider any complaints in the future. That is not pro-Ukraine. That's a very pro-Russian thing. All the war crimes came out of well, perhaps there are some war crimes from the Ukrainian side, but if they are, they're few and far between, hard to detect. The Ukrainians just don't operate that way. So that provision is like crazy. This agreement will be legally binding. Its implementation will be monitored and guaranteed by the Peace Council headed by President Donald J. Trump. Sanctions will be imposed for violations. Okay, so that's neutral. Let's say that's both. And 28, this is the same general structure that Trump proposed to govern the Gaza peace agreement. And number 28, once all parties agree to this memorandum, the ceasefire will take effect immediately after both sides retreat to agreed points to begin the implementation of the agreement. So the ceasefire is not the issue. It's the retreating to those places. So that's still Russia. Okay, how do you think, just play along at home, how do you think we did here? So just guess. I mean, how many pro-Ukrainian, how many pro-Russian? Now, what I see, and I have this here, and I just flashed it rather than told you what it is. I see that the U.S. benefits in at least 3 places. I see that both sides benefit in 3 places, and I see pro-Ukraine is only 6, and pro-Russia is 21. That's what I calculated just going through this. And again, this wasn't scientific or anything, but this was just like listening to what was being said and how it will play out. And maybe I was a little harsh in a couple places with Russia, with like saying Russia's not going to necessarily live up to that. So even if you reduce that, let's say you reduce that by 6 to 21, it's actually 9 to 24 when you say both sides got it. So 9 to 24. But even if you reduced, knock off 5 for being overly harsh to Russia, it still would be 9 to 19. It's very lopsided toward the Russians. And I hope that the Europeans have a much better time reshaping this, because that's what they're doing next. That's what I'll be talking about in the next video. Thank you for your time, the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person who cares about Ukraine.